Welcome everybody and thank you for joining us today, whether you're joining us on Zoom or on Facebook Live or you're watching us after the fact. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Laura Skillen, the Executive Director of the International Mediation Institute, and we're joined here today by our friends from Sydney as well, so hi Jess. And she's muted, so she's not going to be seen. But before we get underway, just a little bit of housekeeping. So for those of you who haven't used Zoom webinar before, you'll find that there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So if you do have any questions for our fantastic guest today as she's going along or afterwards, please pop your questions into the Q&A section and we'll address them after the presentation. But with no further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Bonati Rao, who is based in India in Bengaluru. She's a teacher, an academic, and a passionate advocate for mediation. We're very happy to have her with us here today. Welcome, Bonati.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much for this opportunity. The topic for today is advocating for mediation education in India. And as a brief introduction to mediation and the Singapore Convention on Mediation, here we go. Mediation is an alternate dispute resolution method that first came into vogue in the later part of 20th century in the United States when Professor Sanders introduced this in the Pound Conference. The distinguishing features of mediation are that the dispute resolution can be done in a place of parties' choice at a time that is convenient to the parties. It can also be done online. And in this way, it gives control to the parties as to how to take the dispute resolution forward. It also tries to identify and address the true reason for the conflict, which sometimes does not surface in other methods of conflict resolution. It tries to address the associated emotions that come along riding with the dispute, and also it tries to facilitate communication which has broken down between the warring participants. Now the mediator is a neutral person and his role is facilitator. The Singapore Convention on Mediation is a landmark in the history of mediation. It is a multilateral treaty that was signed by 52 nations across the world, and India is one of the signatories. Subsequently, the Indian government put in place the Supreme Court Committee on Mediation Law for enforcement of mediation and the Singapore Convention on Mediation in India. Now, the Singapore Convention on Mediation gives recognition to international commercial mediation settlement agreements. The Singapore Convention on Mediation applies to agreements resulting from mediation which are in writing and when the agreements are international. To qualify as international in the context of Singapore Convention, here are the two clauses mentioned here. When does this lie? Singapore Convention does not apply in domestic disputes, in cases of consumer transactions, of family inheritance, and so on. It also does not apply in settlement agreements approved by court or which are enforceable as a judgment in the state of that court or as Arbitral Award. Mediation is not new to India. We had our own methods and systems of mediation by way of Panchayat Raj and Lok Adalat. We have new sets of problems that have come up because of changing social structures. We have fewer joint families, which was the norm earlier, and more women going out of home to work. There's more urbanization, and the economy has become liberalized and globalized since 1990s. Now, because of all these changes, new sets of problems and conflicts have come up, requiring new resolution methods. So maybe a mediation could be an answer to a requirement for resolving new sets of problems. And again, this year, the year 2020, we have maximum number of employable young across the world in India this year. So that requires preparing and grooming the employable young for positions of responsibility, to prepare them to resolve the conflicts both in the community, in the workplace, and at home. So here again, training in mediation would be of great relevance and significance. In addition to this, we have the pandemic, the COVID, the associate uncertainty, and problems that have arisen because of inability of people to keep up commitments and the associate conflicts. Here again, mediation is relevant. However, in India, there is very little awareness of mediation. The agencies for spread are minimal, almost non-existing. We have very few centers of mediation training, very few centers for mediation, and few mediators. There is no awareness campaign and no publicity about mediation. Coming to the education sector, we do not have any course on mediation that is certified or recognized by the University Grants Commission, which is a statutory body that has to recognize courses in India in higher education. Then again, awareness is restricted mostly to senior members of the judiciary and the legal fraternity, and us, the experts in mediation, the mediators. For instance, if you look at the participant profile of who are watching this webinar, we will notice that almost all of us are either mediators, all of us or most of us that is, are either mediators or from the legal fraternity. There is very little awareness of mediation amongst the chief users of mediation, the public, the students, and the young adults, the citizens of tomorrow. The government has put in place a number of committees to encourage and promote mediation. Like, for instance, we had the Mediation and Conciliation Committee set up in 2005, the Supreme Court Legal Services Committee, the Supreme Court Committee on Mediation Law set up in 2019. The members of most of these committees are again senior judiciary trained as mediators. The training programs are either for the judiciary to train as mediators or by the mediators for the judiciary. Again, the institutions for training in mediation are also by the judiciary trained as mediators. Now, looking at the support jobs in the committees, even there we find the guidelines and qualifications required specifying a degree in law and experience in law, with no mention whatsoever of requirement of awareness of mediation by the employees. This tells on the way of functioning, the communication within the departments, and sometimes on the results as well. Now, coming to the norms that have been set by the government to be a mediator. Out of the 9 criteria that have been put in place by the government to be a mediator, the first 6 qualify the judiciary to be qualifying as a mediator. The judiciary members are the judges of Supreme Court or High Court, and district and sessions judges, and legal experts with almost experience of about 10 years. The 7th and 8th criteria specify chartered accountants, cost accountants, and company secretaries, and presidents of tribunals. Only the 9th criteria out of the 9 criteria specifies requirement of expertise in mediation and conciliation to qualify as a mediator. Now, this is a point worth pondering, whether persons who have trained in adversarial method of functioning can qualify and work as mediators, given that the skill sets that are required to work as mediators are different. Other pertinent issues are that most of us mediators in India, including me that is, are at present trained from foreign institutions abroad. This works out really expensive beyond the means of many in India. The certificates that are issued, that we get from these foreign bodies, are not often sufficient to practice in Indian courts. Maybe as an answer to this requirement, the government, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, put in place the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, which runs a mediation course of 5 days to certify as mediator. This is a 40-hour course for 20 participants, and the cost of this course is 55,000 rupees. Again, this is also expensive, and considering the size of and vastness of our country and the number of people, that is almost 138 crores, 20 participants getting training in mediation is not much. Then again, most of us mediators are running our own institutions for mediation. The overheads are high, there is no government subsidy, there is no uniformity of policy, and despite our best efforts, we are not able to do as much as we would like to do in the cause of mediation. Lawyers are often not able to provide guidance in mediation. They are not trained in mediation for whatever reason. They may not be able to afford the training. They may not have access to training centers, or even post-training as mediators, they may not have the opportunity to mediate. Whatever it is, they are not sometimes not able to offer their services in mediation. And as for assessment training, most of the courses in India offer courses only for certification and for assessment training for the participants. Underlying this enrollment in these courses for certification and for assessment is the presumption that the people who enroll know about mediation. Now, given the very little awareness of mediation in India, maybe this is why we have very low enrollment in certification programs and assessment programs for certification and mediation in India. The other reason also could be that post-certification and assessment and certification as a mediator, there are not enough jobs. It's not as if the educational institutions are not interested or not curious. There's often an expressed need and a felt need for courses like that in mediation, courses that explain mediation and create awareness of a method like mediation. However, because of lack of recognition by the University Grants Commission, the chief stakeholders, the students, are not willing to pay for these courses and to enroll in these courses. And then again, we have the government sponsoring most of the certification programs for mediators, doing its little bit. The Supreme Court has recommended courses in mediation for law school students in law colleges. So, given the present scenario, we find that mediation in India is mostly court annexed, although technically it is not supposed to be so. With this as a background, what is the future of enforcement of mediation and the Singapore Convention on Mediation in India? The path indeed looks very bleak and uphill. Without creating an awareness of what mediation is about and the benefits of mediation amongst the public, the users, mediation and the Singapore Convention on Mediation will remain on paper. Now, what are the areas that we need to focus while getting across to the public and maybe also to the government and to the policymakers? First is that there will be a reduction in the number of pending cases given the convenience with which the dispute resolution method operates, and the number of mediators will be that much more. There will be an opportunity for a lot many more people to certify and qualify as mediators and to offer their services to the people and to the country. Now, looking at the perspective from the current situation of uncertainty and a certain amount of negativity because of COVID, the method of mediation offers an amicable way of dispute resolution, peace and harmony in society, and it also tells people to share. I have something and you can have something too. In addition, it makes the dispute resolution process that much more easier because the dispute resolution can take place at a place of party convenience at a time that is convenient to the people, and it can be closed and taken forward the way the parties want. So justice is at the doorstep of people. With this, I submit a recommendation for a certificate course for awareness of mediation to be certified and recognized by the University Grants Commission. Here is the recommendation for courses in mediation for recognition by the University Grants Commission. The aim of the certificate course is to create awareness of mediation with a brief introduction to the Singapore Convention on Mediation. This course will cater to the masses. It has to be subsidized or free and at an affordable cost. It can be online and the test can be a written test. It can be made mandatory to all lawyers in India. The second round of the testing or the course can be a diploma course on the Singapore Convention on Mediation with in-depth information and reading up on the Singapore Convention on Mediation. The post-diploma program for assessment of mediator skills will include the third round, which is for serious practitioners of mediation who are seriously getting into practicing as mediators. The post-diploma program can have documentation of cases, customized case discussions, various methods of communication sharing, and writing down of settlement agreements, and so on. And also, the testing can be a practical testing. Here I submit my proposal to the senior dignitaries mentioned here under. The chairman and members of the Supreme Court of India Committee for Mediation Law, the international expert from Singapore, Professor Joel Lee, the chairman and members of University Grants Commission of India, the chairman and members of Union Public Service Commission of India, academics, and respected former Chief Justice of Supreme Court of India, Venkatachalaya sir, who went through my proposal patiently and encouraged me in this effort about 2 years back. My proposal is about 25 to 28 pages, and with annexures, it comes to about 70 pages. My very earnest request and appeal to all of you senior dignitaries is to patiently go through my proposal and to jointly recommend for a certificate program with recognition by the University Grants Commission for the people and for the students and young adults in India. The other recommendations are for a mediation body that can oversee the implementation of recommendations. It may be a chairman. The modalities can be worked out. A common policy is required on mediation and mediators. We need to have more mediation training centers, more spaces and mediation centers, and for funding of these, establishing these centers and for running these centers, we can have a tie-up with the Corporate Social Responsibility Wing of the Companies Act of India 2013 And we can also rope in Rotary clubs and Lions clubs. Now, as to drafting of participant guidelines and qualifications for training for assessment and practicing as mediators, what is suggested is two categories. Persons not holding qualification in law need to possess a minimum of 10 years of industry experience to train and certify as mediators. Persons with qualification in law, the judiciary, to have degree in arts like languages and human behavior related subjects such as psychology, sociology, anthropology, and social work, to train and certify as mediators. Now, this kind of demarcation will take care of the skill sets required to mediate, as well as the ability to guide clients in legal aspects. Other recommendations are for a pool of mediators on government platform, on public domain, maybe a website. My very humble request once again to the press and to the media is to help us out in spreading the message of mediation amongst the people in India and across the world. We request for a participating and educative approach with front page news, with interviews maybe with eminent personalities in mediation. I request the eminent personalities in mediation to speak to people about the benefits of mediation through press, television, and other social media. In this context, I do not know whether it is too much to ask the International Mediation Institute and CIMI if we can get a press statement about the benefits of mediation from the United Nations Secretary General. This will have a huge impact on sharing of creating awareness of mediation and to get across the message on the Singapore Convention on Mediation to the users, the public. I'm sharing here with educational pedagogy that can be used, like for instance, we can have conferences, then we can have research journals on mediation, more webinars, internships, campus ambassadors, assistance in scholarships, and legal drafting training, and grassroots volunteers, and so on. With this, I submit my proposal for certificate course for recognition by the University Grants Commission of India. With this, I conclude my talk for today. Namaste and thanks to all of you.
Thank you so much, Marashi. I thought that was fantastic. I've actually had, well, firstly, I want to clarify. So a few people have asked about the slides, and you've told me that both the slides and your proposal will be available, and I'll send them out to everyone afterwards, right?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, and I've actually had a question emailed to it from Professor Misra. He says, greetings from New Delhi. And he said, I would appreciate if I could be made aware about the role of the government of India and the state government in institutionalizing ADR and mediation practice in India. As an Indian citizen, can you share the portal or one institution which can provide him with all the data and activities conducted in India as of today, basically with regard to this? Do you know any source of information about that?
As on date, we have the Supreme Court Committee on Mediation Law, which is working on the modalities for enforcement of mediation in India. That is all.
But I mean, I was just wondering, I mean, what was your thought process in terms of developing this proposal? Because I'm just thinking that, you know, other countries, you know, or people from other countries watching this video later may have an interest in doing similar things. So what was actually involved?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What I felt was when I went to Singapore in 2015, mediation was just starting off. And then when I visited Singapore a couple of years later, it had spread like wildfire, whereas in India, mediation is still in its infancy and a lot more needs to be done. Similarly, we have mediation taken to educational institutions in school level in Singapore, whereas in India, we have very few conferences, few journals on mediation, very little talk about mediation. Like for instance, there was one conference in New Delhi on mediation. Considering the size of a country, we expect a lot more. This is because more awareness needs to be created about mediation. I'm sure as a country, we have that much more to offer in mediation and in all fields related to mediation. And the other area, the reason why I took it up was I've been struggling the last 2 years to take the courses in mediation amongst undergraduate colleges and in business schools in Bengaluru and in Karnataka. The chief reason that is cited by institutional heads and institutions is, although there is initial eagerness, inquisitiveness, and also curiosity, and as I already mentioned, there is an express need for courses of this kind, inability of institutional heads to take on a responsibility to start courses because they do not have University Grants Commission recognition, which is statutory and mandatory in India. So that's the reason I thought we should request for UGC recognition for courses in mediation, especially for a course in mediation that can create awareness of mediation amongst the public with UGC certification. Yes.
And just I mean, we have had a question come in, but I want to ask you a follow-up question first. I mean, what do you think will be the roadblocks in terms of actually developing this education structure with India? What do you think the problems will be, or the source of the problems? Why isn't it happening already?
As I already mentioned, it's because of lack of awareness of mediation, and it has to percolate and come out of the judicial realm. So, and this is, as I already mentioned, the awareness is very much restricted to very senior members amongst the judiciary, and this is where I'm requesting for assistance and help from very senior people so that the message of mediation can be taken to people down below the public users to tell them that we are here as service providers, as mediators who can help you out through mediation in dispute resolution.
Absolutely. And I mean, if it's reassuring to you at all, this is a trend we do see worldwide. You know, there's a group of people who know about it, but it's very hard to actually get that awareness sort of throughout society. I mean, the IMI Global Pound Conference report showed very similar things within North America, but also in the Global Trends report. But we've had some questions come in from Beijing Misra.
Of course, yes. Trained management professionals can also be mediators. This is to be debated by the Supreme Court committee. When I mentioned industry experts, with about 10 years of experience. That was a broad outline. The discussion on who to categorize for participation in the training towards mediation, that will have to be decided by the Supreme Court Committee. New Consumer Protection Act 2019. Yeah, can I have a little bit more on that, Bijon?
Oh, thanks a lot, Laura. It's wonderful to chat with Dr. Rao and you. Dr. Rao, congratulations, excellent presentation. You gave a thorough insight in terms of the history and how we have come. I'm so happy about it because you see, when we were drafting the new Consumer Protection Act, we wanted to bring in mediation because, as you know, we all suffer from very prolonged remedies from the judiciary and judicial system in our country. And when we drafted the Consumer Protection Act of 1986, I was party to that while drafting that law, for the parliamentarians. We wanted prompt redressal. We wanted, judgments to be given in 45 days, but it never happened. Even today, we have to wait for years to get redressal for small disputes on consumer related activities or consumer rights. So when the new law was being drafted, we brought in this process of mediation because even though we know that we have ADR very much focused in our existing laws, but it is not being practiced. So we brought a full chapter on mediation in terms of how we can do that in India by adopting these modern methods of prompt redressal. And I hope that the new Consumer Protection Act of 2019, where we are framing the rules now, we will bring in terms of who could qualify as mediators, how mediation can become institutionalized, and how we can help state governments to encourage mediation to become a buzzword for the citizens in India, so that they don't have to wait for long, drawn, cumbersome processes and spend a lot of money, because legal expenditure in India, in my view, is very, very expensive, and it's a huge burden on the litigants. So we are all the time trying to figure out how we can bring in such mechanisms. So I'm very excited that International Institute of International Mediation Institute is becoming active in India. So welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Rao.
Thank you, Mr. Mishra. Thank you so much. And I expect you to do a lot for mediation in your 2019 Companies Act infringement. Thank you so much for being with us.
It is Consumer Protection Act. It is the Consumer Protection Act of 2019, not companies.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And so we have a question here as well from Uma Ramanathan, who asks, when we talk about private mediation, what is the regulation process that is necessary to ensure integrity and professionalism?
Integrity and professionalism. We will need to have rule sets, wherein this is where the mediation body comes into play. I had already mentioned amongst the recommendations about the requirement of a mediation body, which not only certifies but checks sure integrity amongst the participants and ensuring the quality of mediation.
And I mean, I have to ask this question because that is a little bit what I have called. It's exactly what IMI does to an extent. So, I mean, what can organizations such as IMI and City do to support India in this journey, do you think?
As already mentioned, if there is a press statement which can be given by the chair of IMI, which can get across to as front page news, that will have a huge impact on the spread of mediation and the Singapore Convention in India. Secondly, I'm already sending my proposal hard copies to the Supreme Court members. If a follow-up, the soft copies can be shared with them, that will really help. This is my personal request. I do not know whether it is possible or allowed.
I've already sent a soft copy to one of the people working on the law in India, so they have seen your proposal. Don't you worry.
Okay, thank you so much. I will be mailing the hard copies maybe today or tomorrow. And incidentally, Bengaluru is under lockdown right now, and even my house is under quarantine presently. We are having a positive COVID case upstairs in the 3rd floor, and I stay in the 1st floor. So, the stress maybe is telling on all of us. In any case, I will be mailing the proposals to the senior functionaries, dignitaries mentioned in the roadmap. Yeah.
I might even have 1 or 2 people to connect to you as well, which is strange because I'm obviously not in India, but I'll do what I can to assist. And so, if anyone has any more questions, please do pop me. But otherwise, I've got my favorite question actually. Okay.
Yes.
I'm just thinking how to phrase it. So, 10 years from now, what do you hope mediation looks like in India?
Oh, I think it will be everywhere. That's what we are working at. And I think it will be there everywhere in 10 years. This is what I'm hoping and also expecting in India as of now. The way we are going, this is the first step. So 10 years is a long time, and I'm hoping that it will be everywhere.
Me too. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think unless Jess from Sydney has a question, we've got no further questions come in. And I can only say that because of the sheer quality and comprehensiveness of your presentation. So thank you so much for that. Actually, somebody's just good. Okay, people are just complimenting you with the question. So I think we're good. All right. Fantastic. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Rao. It's been a pleasure having you with us today. With such a fantastic presentation, and we will look forward to supporting you in this initiative as we move forward.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Laura, and thank you, IMI and Timmy, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Thank you, and thanks to all the viewers and all senior members. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you. All right. See you, everyone. See you next time.